So if you're one of the millions of pet owners who's ever scrolled through Amazon or Chewy, you've seen it. You're looking for something to help your dog who just inhales their food.
Oh, yeah.
And there's this claim splashed right across the screen, usually in big, bold letters. This bowl makes your dog eat 10 times slower.
It's everywhere. It is the guaranteed marketing hook. It just hits that owner's worry about everything from, choking to the big one, bloat.
It's the ultimate emotional sell, for sure. But what happens when we take that claim, that 10x slower promise, and we put it right up into the actual peer-reviewed veterinary science?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, because there's only one study, and the result is kind of a jaw-dropping realization that the entire industry might be relying on this enormous systematic exaggeration.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our source material for this deep dive is fascinating.
Yeah.
We've got that single published study, but we're also looking at it through the lens of an industry insider, someone who actually chose to go against the hype.
And that's our mission today. We're going to figure out if that 10x slower claim has any objective, repeatable testing behind it, or if it's just become, a kind of deliberate deception that's now industry standard.
And what that all means for the biggest health claim of all, preventing gastric disease.
Exactly.
To really get our heads around the scale of this, we have to start with the scientific baseline.
Yeah.
If you just strip away all the marketing, all the ad copy, what's the actual measurable truth? How much do these things really work?
The scientific standard is, well, it's pretty simple because it's solitary. There's only one piece of published peer-reviewed research that measured this.
Just one?
Just one. It was a controlled study by Buckley and Lees at Harper Adams University, published in Veterinary Evidence way back in 2016.
So if any company was doing their homework, they'd be looking at this study. What did it actually find? They tested, 10 dogs over 9 days?
Yep, 10 dogs, 9 days, very controlled. And they did find a positive effect. I mean, that's important. The bulls do work. But it's the magnitude that's the crucial part. They measured the median consumption rate dropping from 100 grams per minute in a regular bowl down to 40 grams per minute with a slow feeder.
Wait, okay. So 100 down to 40, that's a 60-gram difference per minute.
Right. And when you do the math on that, the actual reduction in speed, it comes out to approximately 2.5 times slower.
2.5 times.
And the meal duration, which is what an owner would see, right? The time it takes. That went from about 100 seconds to 300 seconds. So a threefold increase in eating time.
3 times, not 10 times. That's a massive difference. So if the science says 2.5x, maybe 3x, and brands are all shouting 10x, that's a 700% exaggeration?
At a minimum, 700% exaggeration. And this isn't just one or two rogue companies. This claim is pervasive. It's just been adopted as fact across all the big retail platforms.
It really makes you wonder, how does a claim that is 7 times higher than the proven reality just become the standard that nobody questions?
It's the definition of information decay. A small truth gets inflated over and over until it's just unrecognizable.
But that Buckley study, it didn't just give us the numbers. It also had this kind of funny nuance that the marketing folks definitely leave out.
Oh, the dog preference problem, yeah. The researchers found that the dogs showed a pretty clear learning effect. Over the 9 days, they just got better and faster at getting the food out of the maze.
They were hacking the system.
They were totally gaming it. And even more telling, when the dogs were given a choice, a regular bowl and a slow feeder right next to each other, they consistently went to the regular bowl first.
So what does that tell us? I mean, if the whole point is to slow the dog down, but the dog actively dislikes the process, is there any evidence that this creates stress? Could that offset the benefits?
That is a critical question. They didn't measure stress hormones, but their conclusion was very telling. They wrote that they found no evidence that dogs wanted to have their rate of eating slow down. So while it provides mental enrichment, a puzzle, the dog's basic drive is to get calories efficiently. And forcing them to work against that might be good for their pacing, but it's not necessarily an experience the dog enjoys.
And that huge gap between the 10x marketing and the 2.5x reality, it leads us right to the main reason people buy these things, the health angle.
Right.
The entire market is basically built on preventing one of the scariest emergencies a dog owner can face, gastric dilatation volvulus, GDV, bloat.
And this is where the science gets really nuanced and honestly pretty confusing for the average person. The common sense idea is simple. Dog eats fast, swallows air, air causes bloat, so slowing them down prevents it.
Makes sense on the surface.
But the current veterinary evidence is really challenging that direct link.
Okay, so let's trace it back. Where did that idea even come from? The fast eating causes bloat idea.
It really solidified after Dr. Lawrence Glickman's studies at Purdue back in the late 90s, early 2000s. That early research looked at large breeds and identified fast eating as one of many potential risk factors. That was the seed. That gave manufacturers the initial scientific hook.
But science from 25 years ago, it often gets refined or even refuted. What's the more current research telling us now?
It's saying the link is weak, at best. There are several strong counterpoints. First, Buckley, the same lead author from that 2016 study we just talked about, did a huge review of all GDV literature in 2017. Their finding was explicit. They said, most evidence indicates that rate of eating has no effect on risk of GDV. They just couldn't find a strong enough connection in the data.
So the very researcher who proved the bowls slow dogs down also concluded that slowing them down probably doesn't prevent the one thing they're being sold for.
Pretty much. And then second, you've got research like from Van Kreeningen in 2013 that suggests a whole different reason for the gas buildup.
It's not swallowed air.
This research suggests the gas that expands the stomach comes mostly from bacterial fermentation. Processes happening inside the gut itself, not from aerophagia or swallowing air while they're eating.
That's a huge distinction. Because if the problem is fermentation, then changing how fast a dog eats has basically zero impact on the root cause.
It shifts the focus completely. Maybe it's more about diet or gut health or stress. And the third point was a 2015 study by Neal, which looked specifically at Great Danes, a super high-risk breed.
And what did they find?
No statistical link between their eating speed and whether or not they got bloat.
On top of all that, when does bloat usually happen? Is it right after a meal?
That's the key clinical context. About 80% of bloat attacks happen completely outside of meal times. If swallowing air during a fast meal was the main trigger, you'd expect that number to be flipped, right?
Totally. So we've got a product that works. It slows eating by 2.5x, but it's marketed as 10x slower, and it's sold on a health claim bloat prevention that current science says is, well, questionable at best. So what's the takeaway for you, the listener? Should you just throw your slow feeder in the trash?
No, absolutely not. The veterinary consensus is pretty pragmatic. These bowls are a safe, low-risk tool. They're great for mental enrichment, and they definitely reduce the risk of choking or vomiting for dogs that just bolt their food.
Okay, so they still have value.
They do, but they should not be marketed or even thought of as a definitive, proven way to prevent bloat.
That distinction between may help reduce risks and prevents bloat feels massive, not just ethically, but legally.
Precisely. Manufacturers need to stick to what the science actually supports, and anything beyond that, well, you're heading into some dangerous regulatory territory.
Which brings us right to the legal risk. If the science is so clear, 2.5x, not 10x, why are all these companies still slapping 10x lower, and I've even seen 15x lower, all over their Amazon listings?
Because for a long time, the short-term reward of just being the loudest voice in a very crowded market has outweighed the risk of getting caught. But that whole calculation is changing.
Because of the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC.
The FTC, yeah. The legal hammer, and it's a big one. The FTC requires that advertisers have what they call a reasonable basis for any objective, quantifiable claim.
So for something like 10x slower.
That means you need to have objective product testing, not just, some notes you took in your garage. It means reliable scientific testing by qualified people before you ever make the claim.
And given that only one study exists and it shows 2.5x, we can probably assume most brands claiming 10x have zero objective testing on file to back that up.
That is the very strong assumption. And that puts them in extreme legal jeopardy. The FTC doesn't mess around. The maximum penalty for an unsubstantiated claim like this is currently $50,120 per violation.
Okay, wait. Per violation. That's the part we need to unpack. If a huge online retailer is selling a bowl with a 10x claim and 1 million people see that listing, we're not talking about a $50,000 sign, are we?
No. We are talking about extinction-level liability. The legal definition could mean every single time a person views or buys that product based on the deceptive ad, that's a separate violation.
Right.
The scale of the risk, if they decide to enforce it, is just astronomical.
Are these companies paying attention?
They should be, because the FTC has now made it impossible to plead ignorance. In 2023, they sent out over 670 warning letters to companies about these exact kinds of unsubstantiated claims.
So they put everyone on notice.
Exactly. This action establishes what the law calls actual knowledge. You can't say, oh, we didn't know we needed proof for 10x slower anymore. The FTC has laid the groundwork. The clock is ticking.
Which brings us to this really compelling counterexample, a case study in how to do this with integrity.
Right.
Let's talk about this company, Super Feedy. We've seen their verified data, and it suggests their product could actually hit that 10x number based on customer results. But they refuse to use the claim. Why?
It's a fascinating choice, isn't it? Their customer results are amazing. They surveyed nearly 4,000 customers. 92% of them confirmed their dog eats more slowly with the product. That's a huge, reliable sample size.
And the individual testimonials, what were the speeds they were seeing?
This is the wild part. They have documented cases of dogs going from eating in, say, 30 seconds to taking 8 or even 10 minutes.
30 seconds to 10 minutes, that's a 20x improvement.
It's a 16 to 20x improvement in some of those cases. So their own customer data is often double what their competitors are aggressively marketing, and they still won't put 10x on the box.
That just flies in the face of standard industry practice. Why not?
Well, the founder's reasoning is pretty clear. First, that legal liability we just talked about. They know that even thousands of great customer reviews don't meet the FTC standard for objective third-party testing.
They want the proof before they make the claim.
Exactly, long-term thinking. Second, there's just an ethical commitment to avoid the hype. They're building long-term brand trust. They know that if the industry gets a black eye over these false claims, the brand that was honest all along is the one that's going to be left standing.
This makes me think their product must just be engineered better than the generic bowls from that 2016 study. What makes it different?
It's all about engineering and multifunctionality. They call it a 4-in-1 system. It's a deep puzzle bowl, but it also has a reversible lick mat lid. It's a storage container, and it's a travel bowl. It's designed to be the only feeder you need.
But the slowing part itself, how does it stop a smart dog from just flipping the bowl over and cheating?
That's the key. It's got a powerful suction base. Most cheap slow feeders just slide around. A dog can pin it against a wall and bypass the whole thing. This one anchors down, so the dog is forced to actually engage with the maze pattern.
And the maze is different.
It's deeper and more complex, and they say they engineered it based on canine snout anatomy, which they believe is why their customer results are so much better than that 2-3x scientific baseline.
So instead of 10x slower, what do they actually claim?
They lead with their verifiable data. 92% of surveyed customers report their dog now eats more slowly. And, critically, they refuse to claim it prevents bloat. They use that careful scientific language. It may help reduce risks associated with fast eating.
That honesty is great, but transparency has to work both ways. The source material mentioned a pretty big product limitation they have to disclose.
That's right, and this is another sign of their integrity. Because the grooves are so deep, which is what makes it effective for most dogs, this product is explicitly not suitable for brachycephalic breeds.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know that term, what does brachycephalic mean?
It just means flat-faced dogs. So, pugs, French bulldogs, bulldogs, Boston Terriers. That deep maze can actually be really difficult or frustrating for them.
And the company says that up front.
They say it up front. They tell you who the product is not for, rather than just trying to make a sale and risking an unhappy customer or worse, a stressed out dog.
That level of transparency really connects back to the whole theme here, doesn't it?
It really does. The competitive advantage in this market isn't about having the loudest, most hyperbolic claim. It's about having verifiable engineering and making ethical claims. So when you see this product is 2 or 3 times the price of a generic one,
You're paying for more than just a bowl.
you're paying for the 4-in-1 function, the premium materials, a lifetime warranty, the awards like the 2024 People Pet Awards for Best Slow Feeder, and you're paying for the fact that they stand behind claims that are actually true.
You're paying for the truth, not the 700% exaggeration. And with that FTC threat looming, that honesty could become a matter of business survival.
Absolutely. The value proposition of an honest, well-engineered product becomes crystal clear when the alternative is based on a house of cards.
So what does this all mean for you? In a world just saturated with information, whether you're buying a dog bowl or health supplements, we've just looked at a category where almost everyone is relying on a 700% marketing exaggeration instead of the one piece of actual science that exists.
It's a powerful example.
So the final thought for you, the listener, is this. When you're trying to become well-informed, how often are you relying on the industry consensus, which can just be shared hype, versus digging one level deeper for the actual evidence. That commitment to truth, whether you're buying a product or just building your own credibility, is really the only sustainable path forward.